Good morning. Morning. Okay, testing. All right, I think we got it now. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, before we get started, we want to welcome any newcomers who might be with us today for the first time. If you could raise your hand, we have a gift for you that we, if you'd like. No? Okay. Many more thanks to everybody for your tithes and gifts to our church community, whether it's by PayPal, cash, or credit card. We are grateful for your support. A couple of brief announcements. Next Sunday, April 9th, is Easter Sunday, and you're invited to add some beauty to our service by providing a lily. If you'd like to order one, there's a sign-up sheet on the back table, and they're $10. One of our volunteers will purchase on them on your behalf and have them set up here Easter morning. After the service, you can take your lily home with you or give it to someone who would enjoy it. Easter Sunday will also be the last opportunity to bring in those good quality canned and packaged foods that we've been collecting all winter for the food pantry of people in need of Delaware County. So if you'd like to donate some more items, be sure to bring them next Sunday. We had a Lenten Bible study class that has been going on for the last 6 weeks. And we had our last session on Wednesday. It was a very wonderfully enriching and fun class for everyone who attended. And we want to extend a warm and grateful thank you to the teacher, Cliff Miller. Thank you, Cliff. Okay, today is Guest Speaker Sunday, and we're delighted to have Reverend Dana Horton as our speaker today. Reverend Horton received his ministerial degree from the International Centers for Spiritual Living organization in 2019. He spent several years with Columbus Center for Spiritual Living. His message for us today is entitled, "Was it a donkey or a colt?" Reverend Horton, thank you so much for joining us today. And we are also very grateful to have Ralph Leesburg providing our music today. Thank you for joining us, Ralph. As always, we start with prayer, holding the highest in mind and heart for ourselves and each other, our communities and our world. If you're listening in online, remember you can send a prayer request anytime via our website, unitydelawareohio.org. Just use the prayer request tab at the top. Now Ralph will lead us into prayer with a song.
This is Our Thoughts, Our Prayers by Eric Hansen. Most of you probably have heard it before. So feel free to sing along. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer.
know and I feel that presence of God is expressed so beautifully in Ralph's song. I know that all the positive thoughts that emanate from everybody here at this service this morning and online in our community everywhere expresses their true self in positive thinking, positive thoughts, knowing that God is in and through every one of us. So knowing that, I bless this service, I bless the musicians, I bless everyone here this morning, and know that this service is exactly as God intended. So it is.
And every thought becomes a prayer. Well, I'm going to do one of mine. I always liked the idea of a lighthouse as being a metaphor for spiritual awakening or spiritual awareness or whatever it was. And I was reading a book about lighthouses once and figured, well, why not write a tune about lighthouses and spiritual truth? Put it all together somehow. There have been dark times in my life, times I could hardly see, times when it seemed like the whole wide world shut off its light for me. There were times that I felt so bad, despair had taken its toll, like I was shut up in a windowless room in the dark night of the soul. That's when I saw the beacon of light, saw the beacon of hope, felt the tower of strength, giving me the power to cope, lighting up my path, showing me the proof, it was there all the time, the lighthouse of truth. Now when the sun seems to disappear, the storm clouds fill the skies, I know truth is always near. I just have to open my eyes. It stands taller than the trees, and its light is shining true over the raging seas, with the promise for me and you. On and on, illuminating where I need to go. Never is it faltering, ever does it glow. When I think about how I got here, I sometimes wonder about the changes in me. From a person who was living in fear to a person who was living free. And if I just keep moving ahead, living life day by day, accepting my daily bread, with the truth to light my way, that's when I'll see the beacon of light, see the beacon of hope, feel the tower of strength, giving me the power to cope, lighting up my path, showing me the proof, it was there all the time, the lighthouse of truth. Yes, it was there all the time, the lighthouse of truth.
It's been a while since I've heard you sing. You've gotten better. Thank you. That didn't come out right. All right. Okay, and we're not supposed to start today. Okay. It can only get better from here. Well, thank you all for coming today, and thank you all for joining us online today. It's quite a pleasure to come back and be invited back from by Joanne. So thank you if you're watching this, Joanne. When we talked and I agreed to come on April 2nd, I didn't realize it was Palm Sunday, and You know, if we were in a more traditional Christian church, there's so much material to do a talk on Palm Sunday. You've got all four Gospels that have the story of Jesus coming into Jerusalem on the donkey, or, well, Matthew has the donkey Colt thing. And so we're not quite sure why Matthew had both of them versus just one or the other. I did see one reviewer said, well, probably what happened is that Jesus rode the colt in the first half. But then, the hill gets pretty steep into Jerusalem. And so he got off the colt and got on the donkey to finish the route. And that's how he explained the whole Matthew colt donkey thing. But we'll not dwell on that this morning. But it really, when I started thinking about how to do a Palm Sunday, perfect Palm Sunday sermon for unity, I panicked. There's just that it's a little different approach to a non-traditional Christian church to deal with Palm Sunday. So in my panic, I called Joanne. and I said, what do you guys do? What do you guys do with Palm Sunday? And Joanne, being Joanne, she said, well, I don't usually do a whole lot with those traditional Christian holidays. So as long as you don't condemn everybody to eternal punishment or bring in some pagan ritual with a fire pit or anything, you'll be fine. So there's no fire pits and there's no eternal condemnation, and we'll just proceed with talking about meaningful and meaningless struggles. Because I got released from that attachment of needing to come up with the perfect Palm Sunday sermon, and then things kind of fell together. So let's talk about meaningful and meaningless struggles. Everybody's got their own definition of what meaningful struggles are. And it might be raising children, that Friday deadline at work that where you've completed a project, or maybe service in your community, or environmental activism or something like that I know some of you are involved in. Meaningful struggles, good things. The more interesting ones, though, are the meaningless struggles. Those things that usually are connected with some form of fear or some form of judgment or attachment. I had the one, I thought I was having a meaningful struggle about trying to come up with that perfect Palm Sunday sermon. And it wasn't until I released the attachment, thank you, Joanne, to coming up with that perfect sermon that things flowed. I released that meaningful struggle because I then realized, this is a meaningless struggle. And I think we've all got these meaningless struggles that in retrospect, they're so hard to identify when we're in the midst of them. But in retrospect, once you release those fears and attachments and judgments, they become a lot easier. Oh yeah, that wasn't really meaningful at the time. Now, I've had a couple things come to mind here this week that took me way back to my college days when I thought I was having a meaningful struggle about trying to find the perfect date to a spring fraternity party. And this will make sense in a minute. And I must have made, honey, I must have made 20, maybe 30 calls trying to find that perfect date. And I was just starting to surround. I had this attachment that I had to find a date for that Saturday night event. And I had this fear of all the judgments that my friends were already heaping on me with all the failed attempts. Finally, I finally got somebody to mercifully agree to go with me at 5 o'clock on that Saturday night. But it's interesting that at the time, that was such a meaningful struggle. And now, X number of years later, it seems such like a trivial, meaningless struggle. But at the time, that was hard to identify. It was hard to identify. And, whether it's whatever we've got going on that seems like a meaningful struggle, our work in this new thought, this unity type of community, is to work to try and become cognizant enough, try to work with Spirit through prayer work, through meditation, through just introspection about identifying what those meaningless versus meaningful struggles are. Simple, not easy, especially when you're right in the middle of it. Let's park that. Let's park that meaningful, meaningless struggle here for a second, and let's go to the corollary of meaningful, meaningless struggles and talk about the question, is happiness equivalent to a life without struggle? Is happiness equivalent to a life without struggle? And it's actually probably a moot point to even have to try and answer that question, because none of us can go through a life without struggle. So the more interesting part of that is to look at what that definition of happiness might be. Now, I know some of you have done this. I'm doing this weekly essay thing. I signed up with this group that every Tuesday I get this thought question in my email, and the process is every week it's a different question to look at, and some of them and it's a 52-week program, and every week it's something different. Some are about childhood memories, some are about what family holidays you might have had. But there were 2 weeks in a row that really resonated with me for different reasons. The first week the question was, come up with the 5 to 10 happiest days of your life. 5 to 10 happiest days of your life. And that sounds easy initially, and the first 3 to 5 kind of roll off. Maybe your wedding day, or in my case, my second wedding day, or the birth of your children, or maybe some big event or reward you got at work. The top 3 to 5, they just roll off. It's that second 5 that for me, what were my happiest days after the automatic ones? And I could think of trips, even special holidays, and yet when I thought of those trips, or even award ceremonies or something, I didn't connect them necessarily with a feeling of happiness. There's usually, even big events, or maybe because they were big events, there was a lot of stress involved in some of those days. And yet, I know that repeatedly, I will say to Mary that, I think today was a top 5 day. I think today was a top 5 day. But inevitably, when I remember what those top 5 days are, that when I just say generic, this was a top 5 day, it didn't have anything connected to some big event or some big trip. It was usually connected with, somebody really appreciated something. I expressed appreciation for something that I thought was not a big deal, but they really appreciated it. Or something I did in service to somebody that maybe nobody even recognized it, but it was something worthwhile, a meaningful struggle. And so that was kind of an insightful thing for me to kind of connect. Those happiest days may not have been the big days. It was the days that in many ways were just ordinary days, but there was something there that was a meaningful struggle that made it a good day. Now, the next week was, the question was, come up with your 5 to 10. Oh, this is going to get more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Name the 5 to 10 saddest days of your life. Name the 5 to 10 saddest days of your life. And whoa, the memories the memories just flooded with that one. The memories just flooded with that one. And the top day of my top saddest day was the day I left my family. And it was a little more difficult, but it was the day I just had to leave the family, and it wasn't because of the angst of relieving my first spouse, but it was separating from my children. Sad day, and the second saddest day was the day I got let go of a job I really loved at AEP on the trading floor. Just loved that job and didn't see it coming. Sad day there. And kind of humorous now, but at the time, a really sad day was of all things in ministerial school. It was in ministerial school where I got a major dress down in metaphysical class, where I failed to get the proper metaphysical meaning out of the story of David and Goliath. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel now. But at the time, I was excoriated, and this was a minister that was excoriating me for failing to get the proper definition, metaphysical definition of the story of David and Goliath. And on all 3 of those occasions, I went home and I cried. Those were sad days. And yet, now, sitting here removed and with history here behind that, every one of those days had to happen. Every one of those days had to happen. If I hadn't separated from my first spouse, I wouldn't have met Mary. I warned you that was going to happen. And I wouldn't have met Mary and spent the happiest days of my life with her. If that hadn't happened at first. If I hadn't lost that job at AEP in the trading floor, I would not have got that job that I spent the last 25 years of my career at AEP at, a job I just loved, where I met a ton of great people and did a ton of good things that were better matched for my personality and my characteristics. And, I was going to joke that there was nothing good that came out of that metaphysical dress down. But even with that, I learned a lot about, in retrospect, I learned a lot about what I wanted to be like as a minister, what a religious community, all aspects of what a religious community can be. Both the good and the trying parts. So, there were good things that happened and needed to happen after every one of those sad days. Every one of those sad days. So, there's anybody probably everybody who's sitting here and online this morning, and I'll not repeat it, but the Zen story about the farmer whose son falls off the horse and breaks his arm, and the townspeople say, "Oh, that's terrible, terrible luck." And the farmer says, "Good luck, bad luck, we don't know." And the story goes on and on and on about good things and bad things that happen, and they cycle throughout. And every response from the farmer is that good thing, bad thing, we don't know. So I don't think that a happy life is a life without struggle, but it is a life of meaningful struggle. Not a life without struggle, but a life with meaningful struggle. Now that great metaphysical atheist, Nietzsche, once wrote that he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. He who has a why can live with any how. So we got takeaways for this week, and we can't change what the past is. We can't go back and redo. Maybe if you think there's reincarnation, we'll have another shot at it next time. But in this life, we can't go back and restart. But we can look at what's on our plate right now. We can look on what's on our plate right now. And maybe there's some of those things, with a little introspection, we can realize maybe some of those things are meaningless struggles. And maybe there are some of these things that aren't on our plate that are meaningful struggles. And maybe, just maybe, when I turn on to Route 23 to go home here today, I can think about maybe there's just one of those things, just one of those things this week that I can take off that plate, or one of those things out there that I can put on the plate. Between now, I can start this week, and maybe by the time that the end comes, and the end is always going to come, maybe by that time, my plate will look a little different than what it looks like right now. So think about that when you pull out of the parking lot here today and get on Route 23, about the things that you might like to exchange on that plate of life. So we're going to end up this morning. With the great spiritual movie called the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. I'm getting some head nods. Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. Didn't think that was going to come up in a sermon in the future, did you? Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. Here's the thumbnail sketch of the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. There's this group of British retirees who travel to India expecting to spend the rest of their retirement years in this plush retirement community where all of their needs will be met automatically, and all they'll do is sit around and just be served. And they travel to India, and they get to the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel only to find that it is not a plush retirement community, but it's almost a bankrupt, run-down building that's barely there. And they immediately go into this fear of what's going to happen to their money, what's going to happen to them and the rest of their life. They've got all this judgment going on about the owner of the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, and they just do not like what's going on. They are attached to what was supposed to happen, and it's not happening. So over the course of the movie, things evolve, and they all let go of their attachments, and they find that actually just sitting around being served is not what they want. They're not happy by trying to just be served, and they find out entering into some of those meaningful struggles actually brings a sense of happiness to their lives. So the very last line of the movie sums up the movie, sums up this entire talk this morning. You know what it is. The owner of the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, he says, everything will be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. We quote that a lot in our house. Because sometimes it seems like things aren't all right. It seems like things aren't all right. I literally woke up one morning singing this song. And so I had to write all the verses to it. And you've heard it before maybe. And you can probably sing along with it because the chorus part is pretty easy. Amen, 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 amen. That's the chorus part. You guys can figure it out. Transformation from within. Amen, amen. That's the place where we must begin. Amen, amen. Peace and love and harmony. Amen, amen. All good things are here within me. Amen,